Daniel LaRusso and his mother got into a beat-up old station wagon and pulled out onto the road with California in their sights. They were leaving New Jersey behind for Los Angeles and a new job for Daniel's mother. Daniel was not happy about leaving his family and his friends behind, but his mother was happy and optimistic about sunshine, palm trees, and swimming pools.
I don't like smog.
Did I tell you about the pool here?
About 100 times, Mom.
Okay, so make it 101. Open your eyes, my darling son. This is the Garden of Eden.
Daniel, like most teenagers, was moody and depressed when they pulled up to their new apartment. The pool was gross, the apartment was small, and the sink was leaking. This was not his idea of paradise. Daniel met another kid who invited him to a party at the beach the next day. Daniel was happy to have a friend there already, so he agreed. The party was fun, as he and a group of kids kicked a soccer ball around when Daniel looked up and saw a beautiful girl named Allie. He walked up and chatted with her for a few seconds as music blasted from the radio. Los Angeles didn't seem too bad anymore. That was until Daniel heard something coming down the hill. 6 boys on motorcycles raced down onto the beach and rode around the group in a circle. The leader of the group was a boy named Johnny who had blonde hair and wore a black headband. He wanted to talk to Allie, but she refused. He picked up her radio and tossed it onto the ground.
We've been over all this, all right? I don't want to talk.
Well, I want to talk to you, all right? What is your problem?
Look, why don't you just take your little Cobra Kais and get out of here,
Oh,
right?
yeah, right, and that's going to solve everything.
Daniel rushed over to pick it up. Johnny shoved Daniel to the ground. Daniel got up and rushed Johnny, but he sidestepped and tripped Daniel. Daniel got up again and Johnny spun around and landed a kick to Daniel's stomach. Daniel got up and landed a surprise punch to Johnny's nose, causing it to bleed. Johnny stared at Daniel, then stood in a karate stance, then attacked, landing a flurry of kicks, sending Daniel reeling to the ground. The fight was over and Daniel was bruised. The next day at school, Daniel ran into Allie, and they giggled and laughed and were clearly into each other. Daniel ran into Johnny and his friends again. They pushed Daniel around on the soccer field and he was helpless. He decided he needed to learn karate to defend himself. He found a karate dojo and rode his bike to check it out. Daniel walked into the dojo called Cobra Kai and watched as the head instructor, Kreese, spoke to his students.
Fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei! Pain does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei! Defeat does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei!
Daniel was hooked. He had to join. Just as he smiled, he looked into the front of the class and saw Johnny at the front. He was the lead student. Johnny saw Daniel and winked at him. Daniel shook his head and left the dojo. He hopped on his bike and rode home. On the ride home, Daniel was riding his bike by himself when Johnny and his friends rode by and pushed him down a steep hill. He tumbled over and over, hitting his head on the ground and breaking his bike. Daniel had enough and threw his bike away. He was frustrated and told his mother that he wanted to go back home. He shouted about how difficult things were for him out there, and his mother tried to comfort him as they walked to their apartment. After they left, a small old man walked out of his apartment and watched them leave. He shook his head and decided to help Daniel. His name was Mr. Miyagi. There was a Halloween dance at school, and Daniel was dressed like a shower. He was using the restroom, and he saw Johnny alone in a bathroom stall. Daniel snuck over and put a hose over a pipe and turned it on. Johnny was drenched with water and ran out of the bathroom. Daniel fled, and Johnny and his friend ran after him. They caught up to him and really beat him badly.
Johnny, leave him alone, man. He's had enough. Homicide when he's had enough, man. What is wrong with you, Johnny? The enemy deserves no mercy. Right! You're crazy, man.
Johnny was about to land one final devastating kick when Mr. Miyagi jumped in out of nowhere. He blocked and dodged all of the kids' attacks and threw them all over the place. They were defeated and took off. Mr. Miyagi saved Daniel and decided to teach Daniel karate. First, they both went to Cobra Kai to challenge Kreese and Johnny to fight in the All-Valley Karate Tournament.
Come ask leave boy alone.
What's the matter? The boy can't take care of his own problems?
1-to-1 problem, yes. 5-to-1 problem. Too much ask anyone.
Is that what's bothering you? The odds. Well, we can fix that. You like matching, Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, Sensei.
No more fighting.
This is a karate dojo, not a knitting class. You don't come in my dojo and drop a challenge and leave, old man.
Too much advantage. Your dojo.
Name a place.
Tournament.
You got real nerve, old man.
Kreese accepted and ordered no one to harm Daniel until the tournament. Kreese liked the challenge and thought that his boys would destroy Daniel in the tournament. Daniel and Mr. Miyagi had just 3 months to train before the tournament. Mr. Miyagi made Daniel a deal. He would teach, and Daniel would not question his lessons. Daniel agreed. He was eager to start, and Mr. Miyagi told him to come by the house early the next day. Daniel showed up on time and was ready for karate lessons. Mr. Miyagi gave Daniel a bucket with soap and told him to wash and wax his 5 cars. He showed Daniel how to put the wax on and how to take the wax off using large circles with his arms.
First wash all the car, then wax. Wax.
Wait, what do I have to watch all the car?
Remember, dear, no question.
Yeah, but
Right. Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand. Wax on, wax off. Breathe in through nose, out the mouth.
Daniel thought it was weird, but he did it. It took him all day and his arms were tired from the big circle wax on and off motions. Mr. Miyagi told him to come back tomorrow and start early. Daniel showed up the next day and Mr. Miyagi had him sand the deck of the house. He showed him the motions to do again. Large circles the opposite way from wax on and off. Daniel again took all day and he finished. The next day, again, Mr. Miyagi had him paint the fence around his whole house using a specific up and down motion. Daniel was working so hard all week doing all of these things, but he wanted to learn karate and not wash cars or paint fences. The next day after painting Mr. Miyagi's house using a side-to-side motion, he had enough. He questioned Mr. Miyagi and was done. Mr. Miyagi stood in front of Daniel and attacked him with punches, kicks, and chops. Daniel blocked everything using the motions he had learned that week. Daniel was not just doing work for Mr. Miyagi. He was learning defense. Mr. Miyagi and Daniel bowed and Daniel left.
Show me wax on, wax off. That! 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 Show me paint the fence. That! 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 Show me side to side. That! 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 Show me sand or floor. That! 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 That!
Over the next few months, Daniel listened to Mr. Miyagi closely. Mr. Miyagi took Daniel fishing and had him balance on the side of a boat. Daniel fell in.
Learn how to keep trying. No! Daniel, sir, you all went behind the ear.
He took him to the beach and had him balance in the ocean on one foot. Daniel fell. He taught Daniel as much as he could, but never taught him to strike. Daniel thought that was weird. Daniel would always take a break from balancing and look over and watch Mr. Miyagi do a karate technique on his own. Mr. Miyagi would raise his arms to the side, raise one leg off the ground, then do a flying jump kick. It was called the crane kick. Daniel wanted to learn that, but he wasn't ready for that advanced move. The day of the tournament, Daniel walked in and had no clue where he should go or what the rules were. Mr. Miyagi didn't know either. Allie had to tell Daniel the rules. He was terrified, and in his first match, he kept running out of the ring. Mr. Miyagi told Daniel to focus and to be confident in his defense, and the striking would come.
Remember your defense. Points come. Concentrate, focus, power. Remember balance. Make good fight.
Daniel did just that, and before he knew it, he was winning. Match after match, Daniel was blocking everything and was scoring points. He was even beating some Cobra Kai members and had advanced to the semifinals against the second best fighter at Cobra Kai. Before the match, Kreese told his student to take Daniel out. The student was reluctant, but he did as he was told. The student stood in front of Daniel and did a flying leap kick right to Daniel's knee, sending him crippled to the ground. The student was disqualified and Daniel was carried off the mat. Daniel laid on a table and the doctor told him he could not continue and that Johnny of Cobra Kai would be named the champion. Daniel wanted to continue. He asked Mr. Miyagi to heal him. Mr. Miyagi stood over Daniel, slapped his hands together and rubbed them together while he focused. He placed his hands on Daniel's knee, and next thing he knew, Daniel was walking out onto the mat in front of a huge crowd ready to face Johnny. Daniel landed 2 quick points, one of which caused Johnny's nose to bleed. The referee called timeout and Johnny went to crease. Crease told Johnny to go after Daniel's hurt leg and to show no mercy. Johnny did just that.
Sweep the leg. You have a problem with that?
No, Sensei.
No mercy.
He went out there and landed a kick to Daniel's front leg and face. Then he landed another spinning kick, tripping Daniel and hurting his leg again. Daniel could barely stand up, but he did his best. Daniel threw a kick. Johnny caught it and came down with his elbow right to Daniel's hurt knee. Daniel fell to the ground in so much pain that no one thought he would continue. Somehow, Daniel made it to his feet and stood in front of Johnny. Daniel raised his arms to his side, raised one leg, and stared into Johnny's eyes just before the referee started the match. Kreese shouted from the side that Johnny was to finish Daniel off. The ref dropped his hand and Johnny attacked. Daniel exploded with the crane kick and struck Johnny in the face, sending him to the floor. Daniel had won.
Finish him!
Johnny grabbed the trophy that had been his for such a long time and gave it to Daniel in a sign of good sportsmanship. Daniel was the champion now, and Mr. Miyagi watched from the side and smiled. This would not be the last time we hear about Daniel LaRusso or Mr. Miyagi, but those are stories for another time. The end.